Hi everybody and welcome to English for You. I'm Pat.
And I'm Mike. Yeah.
You are indeed Mike.
Think about that.
Yep. Today we're talking about it's a two-day article. We're going to do two delicious types of foods, bagels and donuts. Now they look pretty similar, but they're kind of different. Do you often eat donuts or bagels?
Donuts rarely, but you know, I'm from Montreal, Canada. We have our own special kind of bagels.
That's true. I've eaten them.
There's a big battle between the Montreal bagel and the New York bagel. So I love me some bagels. I remember at college at 4 o'clock in the morning, you'd go to the local bagel bakery and get a hot bag of warm bagels. It was so good.
Yeah, that does sound pretty good. I probably do prefer bagels to donuts. Donuts I will have as an occasional treat.
Yeah, once in a while.
Yeah, but a bagel, I mean, that can be pretty much, you know, a breakfast food.
Sure.
Stick some eggs and some other ingredients in there, just sort of plenty of blueberries with cream cheese. But it's more... There's a word that's versatile. You can do more with a bagel.
Absolutely. Cut it in half, put some ham and cheese. It's lunch.
There you go. All right.
You can have bagels all day long.
You can. And we're going to learn about donuts and bagels in this two-day article to find out some of the stories behind them and what makes them different. Let's check it out.
Reading.
There's a whole history behind bagels and donuts. Americans love their bread. Around the U.S., you can find lots of different types, from Mexican tortillas to German sour breads. Two national favorites are bagels and donuts. These look very similar, but they rose to popularity in very different ways. Bagels are a staple in New York City. Cooks boil a special dough and then bake it to make these ring-shaped breads. They are golden brown and have a savory taste. Some people think that bagels were first baked in Poland in the Middle Ages. For many years, Jewish people there were not allowed to make bread. This was because it was holy to Christians. In 1264, a Polish king made it legal for Jewish people to touch bread. However, they couldn't legally bake unless they boiled the dough first. This strange law led to the interesting process of making bagels, or at least that's one story.
So the article begins by saying Americans love their bread. Now, when we say their bread, we don't just mean the bread that's owned by them, their personal bread they got from the store. This sentence just means Americans love bread. It's kind of a fairly casual, informal way of saying it.
Yeah, we could say, you know, Taiwanese people love their noodles. There's lots of great noodle dishes. Or Japanese people love their sushi. They're famous for it. People go there and eat it, and it's something that the people of that country also enjoy a lot. And yeah, Americans eat a lot of bread. And one of the cool things about America is the many different types of breads that they have there. It says around the US, you can find lots of different types or styles or kinds of bread. Here are a few examples, from Mexican tortillas to German sour breads and many, many, many other types. But those are both breads. Basically, they're made with flour from wheat and salt and water, but they make them in different ways with different kinds of grain, and they have different tastes, but they're all basically bread.
Exactly. So let's look at the two we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
The article says two national favorites are bagels and donuts. So here we're using the word favorite as a noun, okay? If you can use it as an adjective, of course, you could have a favorite food, a favorite sports team, a favorite book, and so on. But as a noun, it's a thing. It's something that you like more than other things of the same kind. For example, the green tea ice cream is a favorite for many people at this cafe. You could also say people like the green tea ice cream. It's their favorite dessert. So it works as an adjective and a noun. So it's a national favorite, which means a lot of people in the US like bagels and donuts.
Absolutely. It's number one, or if it's not, it's very close to the top of the bread popularity charts. Now, donuts, bagels, look at a picture of them. They do have a lot of similar things going on when you look at them. And the article talks about that. These look very similar, right? They're round, the hole in the middle, they're made of bread. So yeah, they look very similar, but they rose to popularity in very different ways. When something rises to popularity, it goes up. It becomes more popular in the way a balloon will rise if you let it go. It will go up into the sky. But here we're not talking about a balloon going up, we're talking about popularity going up. This is basically just the noun form of popular. If something is popular, which would be an adjective, it's liked by lots of people, all right? The number one song in the country is obviously a popular song. It's on the radio, people like it, there's listening to it, you hear it all over the place. If a food is popular, it's probably easy to find in many restaurants around the city or around the country. And famous people, movie stars, people like that, they make a lot of money because they're popular. They have lots of fans. So if we're talking about the noun form, that would be popularity.
Okay, let's start off with bagels then. It says, bagels are a staple in New York City. You mentioned New York in the introduction.
And Montreal.
And Montreal, and they are a staple in both cities.
True.
Something that is a staple, it's a very common, but usually a fairly basic part of a diet. It's often a necessary part because it's maybe the only type of food that's easy and cheap to get for people. For example, rice and noodles are staples in Taiwan. They're something people have pretty much every day. Fish is a staple in Japan. It's a bunch of islands. Fish is a hugely important part of the diet. And so bagels are a staple in New York and Montreal.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, one another thing about a staple, it's cheap, it's easy to find, and yeah, you'll probably have it in some way with every single meal that you eat through the day. So that's another thing about a staple. It's the most common food in that place for people. Now let's look at how they make these bagels in New York. It says cooks boil a special dough and then bake it to make these ring-shaped breads. All right, so they're using dough, which is that mix of, flour and water and probably some salt, but they boil the dough. But as we mentioned, if you're talking about bread, you have to talk about dough. It's what bread is made from. It's sort of the cool part of the bread, and you move it around with your hands, maybe let it sit for a while, and then you put it in an oven, you put it somewhere hot, you bake it, and then it rises to become what we would see and look at as bread. But basically, before you add the heat, the bread was dough first. And notice D-O-U-G-H, but it's just pronounced like D-O, dough.
So, as Mike said, to turn the dough into bread, you need to bake it. To bake something is to cook it in an oven. You put it in a very hot place. The heat kind of gets at it from all sides, up and down and all around, and cooks the food and changes the form of that food so you can eat it. Here's an example. My mom baked bread and the whole house smelled of fresh bread, which is an amazing smell. All right, so we have a ring of dough, boiled, then baked.
That's right.
And so what does that how does it look?
It's a bagel. But yeah, how does it look? Here we get a description of a bagel after it's been baked. They are golden brown and have a savory taste. All right, so now we have an idea of what they look like. They're kind of golden brown, which is, a lot of bread comes out of the oven after being baked looking golden brown, and a savory taste. We'll get to that in a second. But let's talk about this color golden, a great color for a lot of food, right? We think of many different types of food as being golden bread, French fries, fried chicken, things like that can be golden too. But as a color, it's just the color that gold is. It's yellow with maybe a little hint of orange in there. It's the color of the sun as it sets. It's the color, obviously, of the metal gold or something like that too. So if anything has that kind of yellow, slightly orange color of gold, we would describe it as golden. We could also describe something that is made out of gold as being golden, like a golden ring or a golden crown on a king's head or something. But let's have a look at our example sentence. The teacher gives a little golden star to kids who get 100 on a test. If you get a perfect score, you get a golden star. Like at the Olympics, you get a golden medal if you come first.
Exactly, and we describe these bagels as tasting savory. Now, savory is a very good word. It kind of describes a lot of food, and it's food that has a salty or spicy, but not a sweet taste. So meats are savory, breads, you know, even kind of like noodles in soup would be mostly savory because they're salty or spicy. You don't really have sweet noodles very often.
No, not too much.
Okay, so savory could be a pie, it could be a roast beef that comes out of the oven. It does really describe a lot of food. So, yep, bagels are savory.
Yeah, it's more salty than more sweet. So think of most desserts as being sweet, but things you might eat earlier in the meal, like meat dishes, would be savory. Now, where did bagels come from? We know that we have them today. We know that we can get them in many different places, but where did they come from? It says some people think that bagels were first baked in Poland in the Middle Ages. Wow, so obviously we're going back hundreds of years. The Middle Ages is like 1000 to like 1500, so it's, 500 to 1000 years ago in Poland. This is a country in Eastern Europe. Right there between Germany and Russia, we have the country of Poland. And a lot of good food comes from that part of the world. And the other thing, of course, is a lot of people left Poland and moved to other countries, bringing their food with them.
That's right. So it's one particular group of people who are behind the story of bagels. We see that for many years, Jewish people there in Poland were not allowed to make bread. So this group of people, they are the Jews. They are Jewish people. Jewish is the adjective form. It means it's related to the Jews. It's related to Judaism, which is the religion. It's part of the Jewish faith. It is an older religion, and people who are Jewish have been around for thousands and thousands of years. They are older than the Christian faith, but now there are not as many Jewish people in the world as there are Christians or people of other religions.
That's true, but it led into Christianity. Jesus was Jewish.
He was.
In fact, yeah, there you go. Now, why could they not make the bread? Because it was holy to Christians, right? Anyone who knows about Christians knows that one of their big things is drinking wine and eating bread as part of their religion or church services. So I guess having Jewish people making bread made some people upset for complicated reasons. Anyways, let's have a look at another one of our words here. All right, so when we talk about Jewish people, Judaism, or Christian people, Christianity, these different religions, another word that we might use to talk about anything to do with religion and special things for that religion and the people who follow it is this word holy, all right, H-O-L-Y. Basically, it just means it's important in a religion. It could be a place, it could be a song, it could be a person, it could be some kind of thing. So if you go into a church, this is a holy building. The cross in a church is a holy symbol. The Pope who lives in Rome is a holy person for Christian people. And of course, people who are Buddhist or Muslim or Shinto in Japan, they would have their own holy places and ideas and books and words and songs and things like that. Because if it's important to a religion, any religion, it can be described as being holy. It's very important to the people who follow that religion. For example, the Ganges River in India is holy to many Hindus. Yeah, it's the holy river of India.
All right, so we know that it was bread is holy to Christian people. We also see in the article that in 1264, a Polish king made it legal for Jewish people to touch bread. So if he made it legal, then before it would have been illegal.
Right.
We'll get into the meaning of that word. Let's quickly look at the word Polish. Now make sure you pronounce it Polish, not polish, okay? Polish is an adjective and it means from Poland or related to Poland, its language, its people, and its culture. Polish, pronounced differently, is what you use to make your shoes or your furniture shiny. So make sure you get the difference. Polish from Poland, polish cleans your shoes. But so this Polish king made it legal for Jews to touch bread.
That's right. If something is legal, this adjective tells us it's allowed by the law. You can do it. If you do it in front of the police, they won't care. They won't bother you because you can. It's legal. If it's not legal, if you do it in front of the police and they'll get upset and take you to jail, then that's probably illegal. So put an IL before the LEGAL. So yeah, there's 3 L's, ILLEGAL. That's illegal. You can't do that, all right? So for example, if you're over 18 or maybe over 16 and you have a driver's license, it's legal for you to drive a car. If you see a 5-year-old child driving a car, that's illegal. The police will stop that child before they do too much damage to people because they shouldn't be driving a car. It's against the law. It's illegal. But if it's okay, it's legal. For example, that sign says that it isn't legal for us to be in this part of the airport. Okay, so this is a part of the airport that maybe is for security and safety, and if the police or guards catch you, you'll be in trouble. All right, so basically in Poland before, earlier than 1264, Jewish people couldn't touch bread or make bread. It was a Christian thing, but then this king changed the rules and allowed Jewish people to basically make bread, but more importantly, maybe open bakeries and sell bread to other people.
But there was a special rule in this. We see, however, they, Jewish people, couldn't legally bake unless they boiled the dough first. So you got to boil it in water before you can bake it. So in that sentence, we use today's grammar point, which is the use of unless. Now this word, unless, introduces a condition or situation, and it's something that has to be done or completed before another thing can happen. You can put unless in the middle of a sentence, and in this case, the clause that follows it states the condition. You can also put it at the front of a sentence in the same way. For example, we could say, however, unless they boiled the dough first, they could not legally bake bread. So the clause that starts with unless introduces the condition. The other clause tells us what will happen if this condition is met. Here's another example. You can't play video games unless you finish your homework first. So yeah, that was it. If you boil this dough in water, then you can bake it, but not before. Maybe it kind of cleans it. I'm not sure. But
interesting.
That's the law. That's the rule.
Well, that was the law. We're not quite sure why they had that law, but there was a good result from this kind of strange law. It says, this strange law led to the interesting process of making bagels. Or at least that's one story. All right, this was, 800 or so years ago, so we don't have, YouTube videos or newspapers from that time. So it is one story. It's one version of the bagel history. So we're not sure, but certainly boiling the dough before you bake it would lead to a different kind of bread. Bagels, that's what we ended up with. When something leads to something, this phrasal verb basically is telling us it causes something, it results in something. Something is happening, something is going on, and what it leads to is the end result. All right, so, cooking is a good thing to think about here. If you take some eggs and sugar and flour and chocolate, mix it all together, add in some cream or whatever, put it in the oven, cook it at a high temperature for a few minutes, it will lead to a delicious cake. hopefully, are just a giant mess that you have to throw away. But you did all this stuff. You mixed everything. You put it in the oven. You're doing a process and something will happen. It will lead to something.
Yeah, and Mike very kindly described a process or process, both pronunciations are okay, in his talk about making a cake. You do this, you add this, then you mix it, then you bake it, and then it comes out. A process is a step-by-step method of doing something. It is how you do it in an organized, structured way. First do this, then do this, then do this, and this will be the result. It's a very clear kind of way to go through a particular set of actions with an expected result. Now, here's an example sentence for process or process. What's the process for getting a new passport? So, what do I do? What's the first step, the next step? How long does it take? When do I get my passport?
And if you follow that process correctly and get everything you need, it will lead to you getting your new passport. Congratulations. But because of COVID, you can't go anywhere.
Yes.
Anyways, let's get back to our article. We also had that phrase, at least. At least this is the story that we know, all right? Well, we're kind of using this to show that if nothing else, one thing is true here, all right? We're not totally sure about the whole history of bagels, how they happened. Was it in 1264? At least this is what we know. I'm kind of putting this out there and telling you this is everything I know. I'm giving you all the information, but that phrase at least is kind of making you also know that there could be more to it. There could be more information, but I'm giving you as much as I know. All right. So often when you're telling a story, something you heard, but you don't know all of the facts, you can kind of say, at least I know this, or this is what I know. At least that's what he told me. He could have other secrets, but this is as much as I know. I'm giving it all to you. But there could be more.
Yeah, we're clarifying the fact that there might be more information or facts out there somewhere
Probably more.
that we just don't know yet.
Yeah.
All right, so that is the story of bagels, or at least one of the stories of bagels. We're going to come back and learn about donuts in part 2 of our article tomorrow, but let's now go to today's For You chat question.
For You chat.
Okay, so our question today is, what foods do you know that have interesting stories behind them? Share with the class, or in our case, tell them to you now.
Oh, okay. How about you, Pat? Do you have a good, interesting food history story?
I do indeed. There is a kind of curry, a kind of Indian food called a fal.
Okay.
It's extremely hot and extremely spicy, and if you see it on a menu in a UK Indian restaurant, it normally comes with a warning about how spicy it is.
Wow.
Now, the thing is, Indian people do like spicy food, but it doesn't have to be this spicy.
No.
So this was an Indian dish created in the UK because stupid British people said, I want really spicy food. And the guy in the restaurant just, all right, make it so spicy that it's horrible, and just shut him up. Therefore, this fal was born. It's not truly Indian food, it's British Indian food, and it's just really used to punish stupid British people who think they love spicy foods.
So if you went to India and looked for it on a menu there, you probably
would
never
not find it. No.
Interesting.
So it's the story.
It's funny how a lot of food stories come from sort of customers making the chef angry.
Yes.
Potato chips.
Potato
I think
chips,
also started the same way,
Absolutely.
right? The guy was cutting the potatoes. The customer's like, they're not crispy enough. Make them thinner. So he made them as thin as he could. And the customer's like, these were perfect.
And the chef's like, I just did it too.
I just burned a bunch of really thin potatoes, but all right. And
if you're happy, indeed. So there we go. 2 unusual foods, fals and potato chips, made just by angry cooks. Right, that is all we've got for today, but come back tomorrow and learn about donuts. See you then. Bye for now.
Take care.
There's a whole history behind bagels and donuts. Americans love their bread. Around the U.S., You can find lots of different types, from Mexican tortillas to German sour breads. Two national favorites are bagels and donuts. These look very similar, but they rose to popularity in very different ways. Bagels are a staple in New York City. Cooks boil a special dough and then bake it to make these ring-shaped breads. They are golden brown and have a savory taste. Some people think that bagels were first baked in Poland in the Middle Ages. For many years, Jewish people there were not allowed to make bread. This was because it was holy to Christians. In 1264, a Polish king made it legal for Jewish people to touch bread. However, they couldn't legally bake unless they boiled the dough first. This strange law led to the interesting process of making bagels, or at least that's one story.
Vocabulary Review.
Favorite. Let's make a chocolate cake for Judy's birthday. It's her favorite, after all. Bake. Grandma baked the pie in the oven and then set it on the table to cool. Golden. Norma spread some golden honey all over her toast. Holy. Saturday is a holy day of rest for Jewish people, so they often take a break at home. Legal. When Evan passed his driving test, it became legal for him to drive on the road. Process. The worker follows the same process each time to make a pair of shoes.
智慧小补帖
Popularity. Staple. Dough. Savory.
以上节目是由活用空中美语制作。活用空中美语杂志，请洽询全国各大书店。如欲索取试听教材，请来电02-2364-4000 02-2364-4000，或上网查询，网址是 www.english4u.net www.english4u.net